Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your hosts for today, Tumi Morake and John Vlismus. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for being here. It's very meaningful.
Yes.
The gathering, 2015, Meet the Game Changers. Here we are.
Yes.
We are the game changers.
We have changed the game.
A lot.
Yes.
So I think we must thank sponsors first. Nando's, give them a huge round of applause because they did everything. Very good.
The only thing I love more than fried chicken
is Nando's.
is Nando's.
That is so controversial racially. I'm not saying a word. There's the EFF. Shut up. And so, don't say anything. So that's lovely. Also, other people have been involved.
Yes.
You're probably going to be seeing this on The Big Debate, which is apparently a very big television show.
Yes.
Heard of it?
Yes, I have.
Well done.
Yes.
I've got the best TV in South Africa, Netflix.
Wow.
Yeah, support local.
Thank you, Nando's.
That's important. And then also Al Jazeera, which I thought was a great balance out. Obviously, well done, Al Jazeera.
Yes.
Very good. ENCA.
And Nando's.
Yes, Nando's as well.
Okay.
And they're a very big sponsor. And
Yes.
then I'm Books Live and other people as well, the Open Foundation, other ones that didn't give any money. So you'll see them in the foyer. It's very exciting for us. And we're here at the Vodadome because Vodacom's also a sponsor.
Yes,
as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vodacom,
Thank you.
For this. It's amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's really big.
It's like a modern day lekgotla.
Is that the Afrikaans rapper? So, no, we were talking earlier because we believe the gathering should be a cultural exchange, and
Yes.
Tumi was just educating me. I thought that, because we were making jokes about Nkandla, I can't imagine why. And it's not a...
lekgotla.
Yeah, it's not that. There's a crawl. And I thought it was called a kraal, but it's called a crawl. And the English definition, which is the only one that really counts,
Yes.
is to house sheep.
To house sheep.
Which is no way to discuss wives. And then the Zulu definition is not that at all. It's a place of eating meat and incisions.
Huh.
Yeah, it's where the president stabs us in the back. So
I would not say that. That's violent
Why?
and unnecessary.
I'm
It's
sorry.
where he goes, he takes a nation, he bends it over.
Okay, all right, okay. So no. Nkandla. That's amazing. Easy EFF, come on, you've been spoken to before.
I do recognize
Don't worry,
you though.
we won't throw you out here. You're fine here. We're fine with
We
all.
recognize you. Welcome,
Yes.
welcome.
Yes. We even welcome wasps, and they've given us nothing.
Nothing, zero.
If you look at all the sponsors here, wasps, nothing.
Sweet nothing.
Nothing. So that's amazing. Anyway, I'm really sorry that I'm dressed like a pedophile geography teacher. Seems to be all the rage these days. Only way white people can get into the newspapers fiddling with kids. So here I am, trying my best. And Tumi is dressed like...
like I have money.
Really? Is that what you call it?
I'll break you, white boy. I'll break you.
I'll kick you in the... Never mind. So... Never mind. Right, so let's do some housekeeping, shall we? That's why we're actually here. We have some rules today. So what we've done is we've supplied them on here so you can
Yes.
see the graphics. So the wireless is brought to you by Vodacom.
Duh.
So use it. My one note is that if you do use it, and we'll give you the details shortly, if you're inactive, it kicks you off the system. And then what happens is you complain because something you're getting for free as a South African is not good enough. And then you start, if you're a white person, you start a Facebook group out of pure anger. And on that note of Facebook groups, I've got a message from the rhinos. Thanks for the help. And if you're black, you'll have a march and actually get something done. So if it does upset you, just log back in. You've been inactive. That's all.
Next point.
So the wireless is brought to you by Vodacom. And then the signals obviously
Yes.
are jammed by the Department of Open and Fair Communication. Because there will be governmental people here.
Yes.
So that's important.
Hashtag don't say we didn't warn you. Next.
The next thing is, if you see these men, they are not catering.
Not catering.
They They mean you harm, but they'll never say a word. So that's very important. Let's see what the next piece of housekeeping is. Oh, so this is the actual, isn't it?
Yes.
So in the wireless network options, go to Voda World Events. The username is Nando's Gathering, and the password
It's Nando's 2015.
because Nando's is a huge sponsor. Did we mention that?
Yes.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
So in fact, there were some giveaways. Here we go. Giveaways from. Here we go.
Giveaways.
Some bird's eye chilies. There you go. Start a fire. So that's good. Let's see your next slide. Oh, and then obviously
Yes.
your phones. Please keep them active, obviously.
Silent mode,
But
please.
be quiet
Yes.
because conspiracies need silence
Yes.
to be hatched, obviously. Oh, and then this is very important. No smoke. No, we're not shitting you on this one. Seriously, no smoking.
No smoking.
You don't seem to understand.
No.
This is very serious. In
No.
fact, look at the next slide. If you do smoke, you'll break the law, and lawlessness may be greeted with concomitant action.
Yeah.
We don't know what that means.
What's concomitant?
Nobody seems to know.
Concomitant.
It means you touch my shit, I'll kill you. Seriously,
Okay.
like that's very serious. So please don't smoke. It's illegal within the state of South Africa, and as you know, we all respect the law. There are toilets, but this is a sticky issue at the moment. So just go wherever you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
It's all about relief. So please do
Yeah.
feel your way through this one. I don't know, side saddle, sitting, standing. Knock
If you're
yourself
in
out.
transition, just
Multiple
mini,
choice.
mini,
Yeah,
mo.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We don't really want to dwell on
The DA is quite late, eh?
where you pee.
Sorry.
Yeah, here they come.
They're quite late. Like,
Oh
you
my
see
God,
what
that's
happens?
brilliant.
Just pay the tolls and use the road. Sir, I just...
The DA is why
They're
people being
Why
late.
people are late. That's wonderful. No, actually, it goes to show you they have
What the
transformed.
EFF? They
No,
were here
they-
on time, honestly. This is how we break stereotypes in this country.
The winds of change.
Please do take as many photographs as you like. It's a media event. We may
Please.
need all the records later if there is
Yes.
a hearing.
Yes.
What often happens at this event is someone says something about someone, and then there's a whole story.
And
so
then there's
that's
no
important.
proof.
There's no proof.
Yeah.
So, whistleblowers, start your engines. You are welcome here. Tell the world everything you see. Normally, this is the most tweeted event in the world for the first 40 minutes. So use the hashtag #DMNandosGathering, and the reason it's very long this year is we put Nando's into the hashtag
Okay.
because they're quite a big
They're huge.
sponsor. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a big sponsor. So,
Yeah.
so please do DM Nando. Oh, and then this one is very important. If you come here to talk shit about Africa, just remember the corruption started in Europe. So,
Yes.
so that's very important. Germans, we believe.
Philip, it started there.
And not Dutchman has been incorrectly reported. So that's quite important, that we don't get all down on Africa today. That's good. And then the next one is obviously in the event of an emergency, just deny everything
Deny.
until someone produces evidence.
Deny.
Just find your way out and get out immediately. Obviously, you know how to do if there's a fire. Come on, look at your ages. You know what to do. Just leave. If you don't know what to do and there's a fire, stay in this room. We don't need you.
It's called natural selection.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
All right. Paper books are on sale for the retro people. So, hipsters.
God, paper. How
this is for
quaint.
you. It's insane.
For reading, and that's out in the foyer.
How do you scroll through a paper book? How do you...
You turn pages.
Ah.
Yeah. Right. Now, if you open a URL on your device using Vodacom's Blazing network, if you go to www.sli.do, there's a little functionality there that allows you to log questions and watch related tweets. And it's really easy to use. All you have to do is click in and follow the instructions. Just DM Nando's Gathering, and you'll be in. And then you can not only ask questions, which will be routed to the moderators, but you can also read moderated questions. Apparently there's a moderator. We don't know who they are, but it's quite sinister. So there's that. And then obviously please don't think too much, because that can give people ideas. We don't want that.
Dangerous. Very
It's
dangerous.
bad.
Very bad.
Shit will go wrong here.
Yeah.
We might even fix things.
Yeah.
Shit, there's me. Look at the side of my head. It's amazing.
Wow.
Very good. So that's it from us. We'll be popping back to tell you what to do. This is Tumi. She's lovely.
Hi.
We are thinking about having an extramarital affair. So
Just to heal the country.
don't laugh.
It's just to heal
We are
the
building a nation. What have you
Yes.
done?
Yeah. Thanks.
How many colored people have you made? What an asshole. Anyway, so that's fine. So the first panel today, I think we're
Yes,
going to talk about the
introduce
panel.
them,
Is that
please.
right?
Yes,
So
that's
we'll
fine.
introduce the moderators. They'll come up on. It sounds a bit Big Brothery, doesn't it? This moderator bullshit. There's going to be journalists on stage. Let's just call them what they are, and then they'll be here, and then they are going to introduce the panels as we go. But I think the first panel is Political.
Yes, the first one, yes, because they're going to be talking about the state of the nation.
The state of the
Yes.
nation. So quick and quite sad. If you're welcome, we have one political guest who won't be here now.
Yeah.
He's coming later because he's actually writing an exam today. Yes, that's correct. Julius Malema is writing an economics exam. Am I right? Am I right? Yes? Your
Nice.
fearless commander is writing an exam.
Nice.
Excellent. I can't wait. And then... if he gets a B, he can come back. And I said B. I'm trying to be helpful. Because he got a G for woodwork, right? That's why they didn't want him anywhere near the cabinet. Julia, step away. You may break this thing. So anyway, and he may. So the point is that Julius Malema will be joining us later in the day. But for now, we have a lovely panel. So should we introduce the moderators?
Please.
Right.
Yes.
So the moderators are... who should
The
we?
big guy.
It's
Let's
very
start with the
difficult
big
because
guy.
they're all of different races. Who do we introduce?
Start with the white dude.
The white guy.
Yeah.
Richard Poplak is your first moderator. So Richard, if you could join us on...
Mr.
stage.
Poplak.
There he is, Richard Poplak, everyone.
Welcome.
And then we have the lovely Ranjani Munsami,
Yep.
who's right behind him.
Ranjani Munsami.
And then the next lady is Ma.
Ba. Le.
Le.
Mu.
Yeah.
Lo.
Lo.
I. Mabale
Ole
muloi.
Moloi!
Mabale muloi.
I mean, I'll hand you over to Ranjini and she'll tell you all about how this is going to work. We'll see you later. Cheers. But, come with me. Let's go and talk about that thing I want to buy with the sheep.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. We're just getting plugged into the mic so that you can properly hear us. There you go. That's how it's done. Okay, so we're very pleased to be number one for today, at least in the lineup. I don't think any of us will be number one in any other context. So we're going to have inputs from our three panelists, and it's the guys you've been waiting for. So I'm going to call them up now to join us. First up, we have Paul Mashatile, who's the ANC chairperson in Gauteng. Secondly, I think he's getting his nose powdered. I don't know what the delay is. Secondly is Mmusi Maimane, the newly elected leader of the Democratic Alliance, and apparently he has some fans in the audience. And thirdly, we have Zwelinzima Vavi, the person without portfolio, statusless at the moment, former General Secretary of COSATU, but apparently he thinks he still is the General Secretary of COSATU, so he'll be joining us. Sit here. Yeah, please take it. You can sit next to me, Zweli, I don't mind. Oh, okay, so apparently they don't want to be near us. Okay, so Mr. Mashatile is going to address us first. As I said, he is the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng. He was a former member of cabinet, but apparently he poked the bear once too often. So he is now a member of parliament in the National Assembly. He leads one of the most influential provinces in the ANC, that's Gauteng. They are known as the kingmakers and the power brokers, but now and then they back the wrong king, as happened recently. Last year, Mr. Mashatile threw down the gauntlet on e-tolls, and I want to read you what he said about SANRAL. It's not that I don't like SANRAL, but they must know their place. Government agencies don't run the country, the ANC does. SANRAL cannot tell us what to do, we tell them what to do. So let's now hear from Mr. Mashatile, the boss in Gauteng, whom we hear is not done poking the bear, and whom we also believe is being touted for a very senior position in the ANC very soon. Mr. Mashatile.
Thank you very much, Ranjeni. Firstly, let me greet my fellow panelists, Zwelinzima, Vavi, and Mmusi, Maimane. Congratulations for your election as the leader of the DA. Great members of the media, ladies and gentlemen out there, thank you for coming. I wish to take this opportunity firstly to thank the organizers of this event for affording us the opportunity to highlight the work done by the African National Congress-led government to deepen and consolidate the gains of our freedom and democracy, and to share our vision on how we will move the Gauteng City region forward. Program directors, this year marks 21 years of our freedom and democracy. As we look back on the journey we have traveled since our liberation in 1994, we can do so with pride that the ANC-led government has made meaningful progress in giving practical meaning to the words of the father of our nation, former President Nelson Mandela, when he said, and I quote, "We enter into a covenant that we shall build a South Africa where all citizens, black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable rights to human dignity, a rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world." Gradually, step by step, we are succeeding in building a society where all South Africans can walk tall, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity. As a country, we are emboldened by the findings of a World Bank study titled Fiscal Policy and Redistribution in an Equal Society. It was released in November last year, and it said, amongst others, South Africa has made progress towards establishing a more equitable society. Since the end of apartheid, the government has used its tax resources to fund the gradual expansion of social assistance programs and scale up spending on education and health services. It thus was able to reduce poverty considerably. The study, however, cautions that the levels of inequality in our country still remain very high. In Gauteng in particular, we take pride in the fact that despite rapid urbanization and the global economic slowdown, Gauteng has continued to grow as a vibrant and diverse global city region with sustained improvement in the quality of life. The Gauteng City Region Observatory Quality of Life Survey 3, released in August last year, found that satisfaction levels among the overwhelming majority of the people in Gauteng are very high with regards to access to education, provision of libraries, basic services, and good infrastructure. Gauteng continued to be the engine of the South African economy. Our province economy remains the largest and most diverse in South Africa. We have managed to maintain our historic economic dominance relative to other provinces. Specifically, Gauteng. In Gauteng, we contribute more than 36% to South Africa's GDP, 42% of total industrial output, and 62% of total exports. The size of the Gauteng economy now stands over 1 trillion rands at current prices. We contribute more than 10% to Africa's GDP and are a major destination for foreign direct investments into the continent, thus providing our status as gateway to Africa. Program directors, to further cement our position in the national and continental economy, we will, together with our municipalities over the next 5 years, invest more than 126 billion rands to improve social and economic infrastructure. This investment will have major spin-offs in terms of job creation and growing the provincial economy. In addition, we will continue in partnership with institutions of higher learning to strengthen our investment in education, in skills, as well as research and development. In the last 3 years, we have invested a total of 450 million rands in bursaries for students at tertiary institutions. About 70% of these bursaries were offered to female students. With regard to schooling, we remain among the best performing provinces. In 2014, we were #1 performing province of grade 12s with a total pass rate of 84.7%. As part of modernizing and improving the provision of education, you are aware we are implementing paperless classrooms, which are classrooms of the future. With regard to healthcare provision, we are making progress in the implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is being piloted in the city of Tshwane. As part of modernization of public health services, we are implementing e-health system in all our new facilities, such as the new state-of-the-art Natal Spruit Hospital and the Zola Jabulani Hospital. In order to intensify the fight against HIV and AIDS, we have tested over 8 million people for HIV and initiated close to 1 million people on antiretroviral therapy. In order to strengthen the fight against crime, we are working with the law enforcement agencies and are actively mobilizing communities and civil society to join in the fight against crime, including gender-based violence. To demonstrate our determination to fight corruption, the Office of the Premiers began setting up the Integrity Management and Anti-Corruption Unit to drive the agenda of integrity promotion across government departments. This unit will be fully operational by the end of this year. In order to restore public confidence in government's procurement process, we are currently piloting an open tender process in Treasury and the Department of Transport. Consistent with our approach of being an activist government, we continue to engage directly with community protesters who are frustrated by poor and inefficient service delivery. By doing this, we are shifting communities away from violent protests by offering instead a rapid response culture and a listening ear to their concerns. In order to institutionalize our rapid response mechanism, we have launched the Nteresano Service Delivery Rapid Response System, our service delivery war room. The war room is being rolled out to municipalities across the Gauteng City region. Despite the massive progress made by the ANC-led government on many fronts, we are aware that the road is still long and winding. Indeed, a lot more still needs to be done to expand the provision of services to our people, to change their lives for the better, and thus enable them fully to walk tall, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity. As a nation, our comprehensive response to the challenges we face is the National Development Plan, Vision 2030. This plan remains our lodestar to the kind of society we seek to build, a truly united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa. In the context of Gauteng City region, the National Development Plan has found expression in our 10-pillar program to transform, modernize, and re-industrialize Gauteng, what we in brief call the TMR. These pillars are the following. I won't elaborate on them. It will take too much time, but it's radical economic transformation, decisive spatial transformation, accelerating social transformation, transformation of the state and governance, modernization of the economy, modernization of public service and the state, modernization of human settlement and urban development, modernization of public transport and other infrastructure, reindustrializing Gauteng as our country's economic hub, and turn taking a lead in Africa's new industrial revolution. In implementing the TMR, we aim to build Gauteng as a seamlessly integrated, socially cohesive, economic, inclusive city region. A leading economy on the African continent underpinned by smart, innovation-driven, knowledge-based and sustainable industries, an accountable, responsive, transparent and clean government, and an active citizenry. This is our vision for a future Gauteng. We are delighted that this vision has been embraced and has drawn active support from all stakeholders, including academia and CEOs of some large companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Also of significance is that through the TMR, we are responding to the structural challenges facing the Gauteng economy. These challenges include significant disindustrialization, which led to a decline over many years of the manufacturing sector and the dominance of the tertiary sector, the exclusion of the majority of black people, women, youth, and people with disabilities from the economic mainstream, the dominance of racialized monopoly and a minimal role of the SMMEs and cooperative sector, spatial inequalities that contribute to higher cost of living for those in the periphery, as well as a skewed income distribution that tends to lower aggregate demand. Our program to revitalize the township economy is one critical intervention we are making as part of ensuring radical economic transformation. By revitalizing the township economy, we'll transform townships from their historic role of being reservoirs of cheap labor to being new and vibrant nodes of economic activity, as well as decent areas where our people can work, live, and do business. The ANC government in Gauteng.
Mr. Mashatile, sorry to interrupt. You have a minute to wrap up.
Okay,
Thank you.
I shall conclude. The ANC government in Gauteng is keenly aware of public content around e-tolls. Through Premier Makura, we've gone to great lengths to have an extensive, detailed, and in-depth public consultation process through the advisory panel. The ultimate result came about through extensive consultation and engagement with everybody. In Gauteng, we are continuing to fast-track the improvement of alternative routes. We are also continuing to link and create Gauteng city region and allow people traveling from Soweto right up to Mamelodi to everywhere. For example, as I conclude, there's a young man who came here this morning from Tshwane, took REM from Tshwane, got into Gautrain, got into Gaubus, and got here. That's the kind of public transport we need. Honorable Program Director, I'm thinking I'm in Parliament, Honorable. Program Director, in conclusion, I want to thank Premier David Makura and his team. I think they are doing a good job and would have liked him to be here today, but he couldn't make it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mashatile. I was trying to resist saying, Honorable Member, your time is up. Okay, next up we have the recently elected leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mmusi Maimane. CNN dubbed him the Obama of Soweto, but we think that's because they don't know any other black people who are leaders. Mr. Maimane made his debut into national politics about 4 years ago. He first competed to be mayor of Johannesburg and then premier of Gauteng. He's now the leader of the opposition in parliament, and that's where he delivered his famous broken man speech, which the president didn't seem to like very much. So let's hear from Mr. Maimane now and his plans for a bigger, blacker Democratic Alliance. and hopefully how he will continue to breaking down the broken man.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, I have to speak to you as honorable members. I think it's the right thing to do. It's great to be here. It's great to be here in Midrand. I know many of you would have driven through those famous gantries that we call e-tolls and so. But it's great. Thank you to Daily Maverick for setting up this great event. It's also great to be in the same panel with friends and colleagues from the National Assembly, Ntate Paul Mashatile, also Ubabu Zwelinzima Vavi. I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's absolutely critical that we recognize the fact that, and I want to thank Daily Maverick and Nando's for putting together this event, your media partners, obviously NCA and Al Jazeera, who are here. Events such as this one are crucial to a proper functioning of our democracy. I think South Africans often need to see how one party can offer up its own ideas against another party. I think we need a South Africa where we can offer ideas and alternatives without necessarily having to fight with each other, but really present an alternative for many people in this country. And I think without fail, South Africa's heritage has been one of dialogue and discourse. I think CODESA is a very instructive lesson when we saw how we're able to negotiate through a very difficult time and find our space here today. I think events such as this one must be the daily norm of the people of this country so we can continue to share ideas. I'm sad to say that Parliament has become something a little bit different, a place of entertainment often from Channel 408. And sadly, in the disruption of Parliament, it unfortunately plays into those who prefer to live in the past and fight for past glories and are desperate to, in fact, protect the status quo. I want today to spend the next number of minutes just painting for you a picture of a South Africa we want to live in. A South Africa that I believe the DA wants to put forward and say what inclusive economy and a prosperous South Africa we want to have. So I think none of us can disagree with the fact that we are in a time in South Africa where we need desperate and decisive leadership. Leadership that will put South Africa first rather than any political affiliation, and leadership that says this is the future and this is the vision of South Africa as we'd like to put it. 2 days from now, the DA will launch its Vision 2029 here in Gauteng, in Soweto. It's be a blueprint of the society we want to see, we want to build, based on our three values of freedom, fairness, and opportunity for all South Africans. We call it Vision 2029, and if you like, you can join the hashtag Vision 2029. Because indeed it describes a society that will occur 10 years after the DA will lead the national government. So, if you count back 10 years from 2029, you'll see exactly why and where we've set our sights. Crucial to our vision to implement, we speak to South Africans, we need to recognize the opportunity for change in South Africa. I think all of us will be comfortable in knowing the fact that as we learn from many of our African states, that one-party democracies don't succeed. And so it's crucial that we see change in South Africa. The absolute task of seeing an electoral change in this country will mean that the electorate will recognize the fact that power is in their hands and not in the politicians. We should never get to a point, we should get to a point where politicians fear voters rather than the other way around. For if we are to achieve that, it's a vital step towards the sustainability of any democracy. And so our argument about what a second transition is, I believe it will be a change that will see this government will usher a way for a new government. I believe without fail we're seeing in crucial metros, Nelson Mandela Bay, Tshwane, Joburg, that in fact if we are to win one of these metros, it will in fact indicate the fact that South Africans can exercise their democratic rights through the ballot box. I want to say this to you, that in fact ours is to build that non-racial South Africa. That party is to say to ourselves that South Africans, regardless of the color of their skins, can share values of a South Africa they want to see. That's why Vision 2029 is critical. That's why we're building a political party that is non-racial, because we believe that the challenge to redress a historical legacy, to say to ourselves we'll address historical challenges, must be solutions found with one another rather than apart from each other. Therefore, I believe that it is possible that South Africans from all walks can build a political party that addresses these historical challenges. We as we sit here today, our task is forward-looking. Our task is to focus on a better future for all South Africans. So here's some of the challenges that we face. I believe this current government has focused itself rather than from serving people, but to serving itself. As many have called it, a neo-patrimonial state, a state focused on, in fact, looking after one another rather than the people of this country. I think, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be an economist to know what's wrong with South Africa. Anyone will tell you that our biggest threat is the fact that many South Africans cannot find work, they face the harsh levels of poverty, and without fail, we still live in an unequal society. Pre-1994, economic growth was fueled by minerals, a large dependence on cheap labor, primarily black labor, and an oversupply of energy that served a small group of businesses. The post-1994 government began with the objective, under a great icon of President Nelson Mandela, of building that inclusive, non-racial, and prosperous society. But I think without fail, progress towards this has halted. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that our GDP growth is only at 1.4%, down from 1.9% in 2013. It is forecast this year at 2%, well below the 5% required by the National Development Plan to create any real dent in unemployment. Economic success is being prevented, really, in the main, by policy uncertainty and, without fail, incoherence. Added to this, there's an undue influence of unions who don't seem to care about the future of workers they represent. Our challenge here today, as I've highlighted, for South Africa to be prosperous, we need a singular, focused economic plan. Others have cited the National Development Plan in this regard, but we've failed to see its implementation. I believe South Africa's economy can grow at the levels that are required. We need to make sure that this economy is energy secure. There's no doubt the fact that if we look around, for some it might be a candlelit dinner every night for 2 to 4 hours. For the economy, it means 80 billion rands that has been lost by the South African economy thanks to load shedding. I think it's time that we get to a point where we say the monopoly that Eskom is can no longer be protected by the state, where we continue to fund it with bailouts. What we desperately need is to allow independent power producers to have the right to contribute to our energy grid in a constructive manner. It is indeed a challenge, the fact that 2/3 of the unemployed, which is my true passion, are South Africans who are under 35 years. We have to, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to reduce unemployment, address the plight of young people. And I believe that without fail, we can be able to allow, not for our young people, not only to be employees, but to be employers. We need to see a nation of entrepreneurs emerging out of young people so that we can start a revolution of small businesses that will be able to apply and employ more and more young people. Without fail, we have to create a capable state. And this is still a challenge for me as to why, when others are being secure in comfort at 246 million rands palace, South Africans still suffer a constant burden of being homeless and sometimes without a place to sleep at night. I was in Limpopo yesterday. I sat next to a man who had lost his house, was sleeping in the streets. And I still to this day think, as South Africa, we cannot in any given world justify that a swimming pool can be a fire pool, or that one person can own a house that they do, while so many of the South Africans, like I met yesterday, are spending their days in the streets. So I believe, without fail, we need to make this happen if businesses, particularly small and medium enterprise, are given the space to support and thrive. A dear government will do everything it can to remove obstacles that prevent small businesses from getting off the ground. Really, this is about a matter of reducing red tape, making startup capital available to enabling cross-border trade, and rewriting the absurd, the recently launched visa regulation. We must make South Africa an attractive place for more entrepreneurs and investors alike. We have to, as we drive along the M1 of Johannesburg, break down the Berlin Wall of inequality, where on one side is Sandton, on another side is Alexandra. These divisions cannot exist in our society, and therefore we have to make sure we do more in communities like Sandton by building infrastructure that South Africans can depend on, by ensuring that more trade can take place in communities such as Alex, and without fail, giving the people of South Africa their title deeds. For if you learn anything about economics, is that when people can hold on to an asset, they can trade against it in order to secure their economic future. Ladies and gentlemen, our top priorities will always remain in these, our opening opportunities will be dealing with these three. How do we deal with education? How do we deal with ESCOM? And ultimately, how do we deal with e-tolls? The education of young people is absolutely critical. It's an absolute disgrace that our education system in this country is considered amongst the worst in the world. We believe that we must make sure that young people get teachers who stay in the classrooms, principals who are not elected by unions, and ultimately classrooms that have the economic infrastructure to make sure that South African citizens and young people are digital citizens rather than excluded from them. We have to, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to deal with ESCOM, ensure that we deal with the energy crisis in a sustainable manner. If we dismantle ESCOM, we can ensure other players come on board, but those players must come on board in a way that will ensure that we are sustainable and that our energy supply is environmentally friendly. Finally, we must kick SANRAL's failed e-toll plan into touch. I believe in road infrastructure that must be built. What I certainly refuse to accept is the fact that South Africans must be double taxed for it. Taxed at the pump and also taxed when they drive on the road. We must kick off. Yes, I am wrapping up, Ranjini.
No,
Yeah.
you've got a minute to wrap up, Honorable Member.
Therefore, we can't ignore the people of Gauteng when they call out for a scrapping of e-tolls. We must finance road infrastructure through using the fuel levy. And yes, I know it will be levied across the country, but I believe if we're really going to create a vibrant economy, all of us in South Africa can contribute to it. We cannot afford South Africa to remain corrupt. We must show a zero tolerance to crime. And ultimately, we must ensure that many, many millions of South Africans have the opportunities that they once were denied. So, ladies and gentlemen, we face a crossroad. We can choose a government that clearly has shown that our economic growth is being hampered, or we can make a change. And I believe this change is possible. We can build a society built on those three values: freedom, fairness, and opportunity. We can allow that South Africans know that if this government does not deliver, they can choose another one. We can choose change that will allow that South Africans have a dream that makes it accessible for many more to have opportunities in this country. I'm certainly committed to doing that. We've shown where we govern that we run states that are capable, a government that is able to deliver on basic services, a government that is clean of corruption, but ultimately a government that is accountable to the people. I believe ultimately, if we're going to get South Africa right, that our second transition must be that shift at national elections where we see one government make a way for another. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maimane. I'm quite impressed that there was no actual mention of Nkandla. Okay, our final speaker is Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi. As I said earlier, he's currently statusless, but planning for a major status sometime in the future, I believe. I must mention that Mr. Vavi is somewhat of a veteran of the gathering. He's the only speaker to address every single gathering that we've had. And I think that's because Mr. Vavi is always in the news, sometimes not of his own choosing. And he was recently expelled as COSATU General Secretary, but as we know, he's something of a comeback kid. So he's on his way back. Let's hear what's his game plan to build working class power.
Matla. Matla. Thank you very much, Ranjini, and good morning to the leader of the DA, the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, and the other distinguished members of the panel, here and not here. To you all, ladies and gentlemen, dear comrades, I have a long speech, and no one will stop me. The ANC-led democratically elected government has delivered historic improvements to the lives of our people, particularly in the provision of basic services like electrification, water, and housing, increased access to health and education services, even though we can complain about them being of often substandard nature, fairly entrenched basic rights of movement, expression, association, collective bargaining, regular democratic election, peace, and consistent long-term, although slow, economic growth. Yet, persistent socio-economic challenges threaten many of those gains. Our country faces its biggest crisis since the birth of our democracy in 1994. Unemployment has reached an appalling level of 36.1%, by a more realistic expanded rate, including those who have given up looking for employment. And when we talk numbers, this is 8.7 million South Africans who could be working, who could be earning a living for their families and contributing to the country's wealth. These are being excluded from the country's economic life. That's, to me, the crisis. And anybody who says there's no problem, then there's something wrong with that person. Economic growth in the first quarter of 2015 was crawling along at miserable 1.3%, meaning that there is no prospect for an early relief for those that are unemployed. Poverty is the second challenge, with 54.3% of our people living in poverty, according to the government statistics, and 14 million South Africans going to bed hungry every night, despite the country's producing more than enough food. Deindustrialization continues. In 1994, manufacturing sector was contributing 23% to the GDP. By 2013, that figure has fallen to 11%. More and more jobs are being casualized, contributing to a rise in the number of the working poor. Wages of the workers remain low, with the median salary in South Africa at 3,033 rands. Income inequalities are at world record-beating levels, and there is a painful slow progress in reversing racial and gender inequalities in wealth and employment, which we inherited from the apartheid system. More than 65% of all new promotions to senior management are still going to the white people, and 75% of senior management remain white. So why then are we now facing such an economic, social, and economic catastrophe? Part of the reason is denialism, is to look on the other side when others are facing the pain. We shall never solve such problems if that denialism remains. The other day, the very day when the government arm, the other arm, was releasing this sorry state of affairs in terms of the statistics, our president was telling Parliament, and we quote him, that our country is doing very well. The fundamentals are in place, our institutions are strong and sound, and all arms of the state are functioning effectively. The executive, parliament, and judiciary. This means our hard-won democracy is safe, end of quote. In our real world, South Africa is In our real world, South Africa is teetering on a knife edge. Our revolution is on trial and at crossroads. Millions of people are feeling marginalized and excluded by a society in which the rich get richer and the poor are left even further behind, angry and frustrated. The poor are asking fundamental questions about whether a tipping point has not been reached where they can conclude that democracy serves only the interest of the elite, in particular white monopoly capital. More and more of the poor are taking part in community protest in over-service delivery. Corruption and waste of money by municipal councillors, according to the SAPS Incident Registration Information System, there were 34 incidents of service delivery protest a day on average between April 2012 and March 2014, with 15% of those getting violent. The masses are clearly beginning to sulk, if we were to use the way that Frantz Fanon described the phenomenon of resignation from the politics. Only 50% of the voting population still have hopes in our political parties, according to the participation in the 2014 elections. This ticking bomb continues to tick, and our cities are being surrounded by rings of fire. The basic cause for these problems is colonialism and apartheid. But instead of addressing these underlying problems, using our historic approach to development, the ANC government abandoned the RDP and the Freedom Charter. They adopted gear in 1996, which swept away the transformation agenda of the RDP and handed power over to the World Bank and IMF, with their local agents entrenched in the Treasury and the Reserve Bank. This cleared a way for a drive by a predatory capitalist elite in the state and in the boardrooms of big business to exercise control over all areas of society to advance its agenda of maximizing their wealth. Capital is engaged in concerted drive to emasculate the power of workers, force down wages, weaken collective bargaining structures, and get rid of laws to protect employees from unfair dismissal and discrimination. The 2007 Polokwane Conference gave us hope that there might be a shift back towards progressive policies of the RDP inspired by the Freedom Charter, but our hopes were dashed with policy zigzags that led to policy paralysis. The adoption of the National Development Plan, which we call GEAR Mark II, which has tied our economy even more firmly into the agenda of international monopoly capital. Our new masters are now the credit ratings agencies, elected by nobody, but mandated by investors to blackmail elected governments into adopting policies which will maximize the profits of the super rich or of their super rich clients. Our government has given in to the threats, with the Treasury again acting as the lackeys and enforcers of the rating agencies with their successive austerity budgets. Meanwhile, tenderpreneurs, corrupt politicians and officials, even a few inside the trade union movement, are cashing in by exploiting the climate of anything goes to get quick at the expense of workers, consumers, and the economy. The statement by the Minister of Police Nathi Nhleko on the repayment of the money spent on Nkandla is a disgrace. Is a disgrace move to dodge taking responsibility for the grossly excessive amount spent on a project as a whole now at 246 million, and for all those who corruptly benefited from it. It is not just in Nkandla where costs have escalated, but virtually every government project, such as in Medupi, where the budget was 52, escalated to 130 billion. Kusile 81 escalated to 172 billion. Gauteng 3.5 escalated to 25 billion. This is the country where we buy a loaf of bread for 26 rands, a bottle of water, 300 milliliter, for 24 rands. Auditor General Kimi Makwetu has just revealed that 12 billion disappeared in a fruitless and wasteful expenditure by 246 municipalities in the 2013-2014 financial year. Whilst we welcome the slight improvement, but we insist that our base remain very low. What makes even more frightening is that this is happening when the trade unions, the last powerful weapon in the hands of the working people, are being fragmented and weakened and have been targeted for co-option to serve the agenda of these powerful predatory interests. Organs of the people's power, and most worryingly, not only COSATU but the ANC Youth League, are the pale shadow of themselves as an agenda to domesticate, hollow them out, and blunt them seem to be succeeding. The youth.
Mr. Vavi, you have 1 minute to wrap up.
That's so.
I'm sorry.
But we had a deal.
At least I'm not expelling you. I'm just
We had a
giving you
deal.
minute.
I am so used to being expelled. Sometimes you take a pleasure on who is behind you being expelled.
Are you
that
going to
makes
tell
you
us?
to
We're
feel
hoping you're going
good.
to tell us who's behind it.
You're not counting all of these conversations in our time, do you? Thank you very much. In my view and in our view, I can go on and speak about the other tragedies, the state of affairs in our state-owned enterprises, and we can go on to talk about the state of affairs in our parliament, but the only way forward is the return to the Freedom Charter. Dumping of the National Democratic Plan and go back to the state and to the ANC ideals as we know them. And I want you to just put this quote, and for you to internalize that, because only when we can pretend to that notion that you see in the screen can we save South Africa from imploding altogether. The last sentence is very striking. It says, therefore, a fundamental feature of our strategy that victory must embrace more than formal political democracy. We are not interested in holding ballot papers and throwing them in a ballot box in every 5 years, and we think that that's democracy. To allow existing economic forces to retain their interest intact is to feed to the root of racial supremacy and does not represent even the shadow of liberation. That's my bottom line. That's my departure point. Unless this can happen, I can't see any way back from the hole we have dug our country into 21 years into our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vavi. Now we get to the good part, where we get to ask questions. In Nando's terms, I think that's the extra hot spice. So let me start off with Mmusi. I want to wish you a happy belated birthday. I believe you just turned 35.
Yeah.
You know, in the ANC Youth League, you probably wouldn't be old enough to be a leader there. So well done.
Or if you apply for a special dispensation, you probably could still stand.
Oh, right. Okay. So at the age of 35, you are at the top of the food chain in the Democratic Alliance, the leader of the opposition. In order to do that, you probably had to play the right game and be extremely nice to Helen Zille. How did you do it? How do you be nice to Helen Zille?
Look. Helen has contributed immensely to our party. She's grown it successfully well. And I think even in her own space, she recognized what was important about if we build a project that is a non-racial project, we must open up more opportunities for more people. It wasn't, and I think that's part of her legacy to the DA, is the fact that she was quite instrumental in being able to allow other leaders to play in fairly strong spaces, whether those are parliament, as we saw even with Lindiwe Mazibuko, or in various aspects. And I think our project of building a very diverse party is well on its way and very successful. We don't represent one race, despite what our opponents might say. We really represent a diverse group of South Africans because we believe, indeed, in the principle of a non-racial South Africa. So it is, of course, common cause that without even having to legalize it or to put some legislation behind it, that we've successfully been the only party in the South African landscape that's had a woman lead it, which I think is an important acknowledgement. It says that you can allow any South Africans, regardless of gender, to lead. And the fulfillment of that project then had to get to a point where you say, look, it then becomes plausible that any South African, regardless of age, regardless of race or gender, can ultimately end up being the leader of the DA. And I hope that, in fact, our long-term trajectory says that if we are true to the fact that we want a South African who grows up in Soweto and Dobsonville to end up leading the DA, it must be true economically that any South African who wants to work hard, achieve the objectives, they can get to the top. So I think in many ways that's the project we engaged with. That's the project I was engaged with. So in some ways, I'm glad that you can come back from a Congress and where Helen Zille has only got one vote and 90% of the delegates stand up and say, we think Maimane should lead us. So I think that's the achievement of the project of ensuring that it's open for anybody to be able to lead.
Okay, just to correct you, the leader of the National Freedom Party is a woman.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, yes. All right.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mashatile, you'll have a vote at the next NC conference. Do you think there'll be a woman leader?
A woman leader.
Mr. Vavi, are you going to have a vote at the next ANC conference?
Yeah. Well, you're putting me on the spot. Well, let me put it this way. As the ANC, we are very open to anybody leading. Very open. I, in particular, would not mind to be led by a woman, but my point is that as we get to conference, we need to look at the best candidate to lead the ANC and the country. For me, that's the bottom line.
To lead the ANC.
Okay, to lead, they say I must leave the country.
Yeah, it's to lead the ANC, that's it.
To lead the ANC
and
the country.
while you're making that point, you don't have any names in mind by any chance, would you?
Not as yet.
Oh, right.
I nominate Paul.
And Mr. Vavi, do you have any names in mind?
No. No. It depends on what you want to achieve. And if the agenda is to address the crisis that I'm referring to, and that's the sole agenda, then that will excite me. But if the agenda is to continue with the status quo, then I'll have no time to think about such things.
So let's say the agenda is to continue with the status quo. You're getting big cheers from the EFF fighters in the audience. Do you think, and you'd look great in a red beret and a red oval. Do you think you'd make the leap over? Do you think you'd do that?
No, I'm not joining the EFF. And,
do you think the EFF might join you?
I don't know.
Fighters, would you join?
A resounding no.
A worker in Australia facing a retrenchment once saying, the future is anybody's fear. You never know what is going to happen tomorrow. Never say never. You just don't know. All I know is that I represent a set of ideas, and I've been consistent in pursuing those set of ideas. I don't change because there's blue skies or storms or anything like that. I consistently represent that agenda, and I don't change because it is nice to do so. I consistently, with all the pain that I have to endure, remain very true to what I say every day in my life. And what happens tomorrow, I don't know.
Mr. Vavi, speaking of tomorrow, because Ranjeni keeps mentioning that you are without a job or a position currently.
I'm part of the 8.7 million unemployed.
Okay, yes, sir, yes. Now, we've very quickly seen the EF launch a party, go to the polls, and surprise most of us by getting over 1 million votes. What happens next for you? There have been mumblings of you starting your own political party, so let's talk about tomorrow.
I said an Australian worker saying, the future is anybody's fear. What happens tomorrow, I honestly don't know. All I know is that I represent a set of views that South Africans know what those views are, and what will happen to those views, and what workers themselves will decide what should happen about those views is up to them. What I will not do is to come in this platform and say, I want to create a new federation. It's not my business to create new federation, or to say there is a need to create a genuinely left organization to represent the aspirations of the working class and the poor in South Africa. It's not my business to do so. I can contribute to that discussion, but it's up to the workers themselves to decide.
I mean, I think what Vavi is saying is actually quite instructive about the future political leanings of South Africa. I think, unfortunately, once you start to get into labels as to whether he'd look good in a beret or not, sometimes can have its own hindrances. I think where it's helpful is that let the parties that agree on a certain ideological platform be together. And let parties that say we support this point of view about economic transformation be together. Because then I think in some ways we get into a very healthy space of contestation on the basis of values. That South Africans who have a deep history of racial polarization, still in some ways, the last place we want to be is to arrive at the polls as an expression of race, but rather be an expression of ideas. So that when somebody sits down and says, I think nationalization is the way to go, they can go with those who think nationalization is the way to go. Or if I think the ability for the state to be transformed must be leading in this way in enterprise and business so that we can take South Africa in that way, can come together and agree that we take that journey forward. So I think it's actually a very instructive conversation that we're having here without personalities, because I think it presents a very enticing future about what South Africa's political landscape might be.
Okay, so you're talking about racial polarization. One of your priorities now as the new DA leader is breaking down the barriers of race and changing the complexion of your party. So how do you do that? I mean, how do you take the DA from where it was to this new complexion DA?
Look, or the cafe mocha DA, is that what you
Oh, is that what you call it?
No, I don't call it that, I'm just saying. Look, the mistake that apartheid, well, in fact, the evil that apartheid introduced to South Africans is that if you are of a particular race, you are superior, and if you're a particular race, you are inferior. The other thing that apartheid did is that it dehumanized people and made black people subhuman, if I can use such an awful term. But it was an evil system. It's important that we reflect on that, because I think the future of South Africa must be able to deal with those stereotypes. And that's why I've been very quite clear that if anyone holds those polarizing views, they are not welcome in the DA. If anyone holds any racist views, they must join another party. Not interested in people like that coming into the DA. What must be important is that all of us as human beings, if, as Ntade Sobukwe said, that the one race that must matter must be the human race, that we talk about the fact that we share common interests and common fears. That in fact, when we talk about a values-based society, we share certain things. We share concern about the education for South Africans. We share a concern about addressing historical injustices. And so the project that I'm involved with now is about building a non-racial South Africa based on the values that say we share, and ultimately, as we launch over the weekend, a vision that says, here's the South Africa we want to see. And I believe the project is well on its way. The majority of our voters are, in fact, not white. They are South Africans from all walks. They are black, white, Indian, color. The project that we're engaged with is about entrenching those values. It's ultimately about, as we go about in various communities, I've been quite encouraged and buoyed by seeing in the various communities where people say, we see the project of a non-racial South Africa and we want to build towards that.
Okay,
that's the work I'm engaged with.
this project of a non-racial South Africa was your project, Mr. Mashatile. What's happened? Why is he stealing your project?
No, you know, sometimes it's okay to agree. So if Mmusi is with me, that's good.
Come join.
But let me make this let me make this point that you know, when I joined the ANC more than 30 years ago as a young man, one thing that I was taught was that we are fighting against a system, not white people. Already at that time, so you can understand that young men and women who grew up in the ANC knew that we have to build a non-racial society. So I'm happy when I see all parties in South Africa committed to that agenda. And you will see in all our speeches, that's what we say. Well, sometimes people challenge us and say, well, you know, you don't have enough white people in your leadership. That's a different issue that we must address. But in terms of our commitment to non-racialism, I think the ANC cannot be questioned on that one. We are committed.
But you can be questioned on a lot more, right? Huh? Can be questioned on a lot more. We're getting questions from the audience and from social media, and guess what's the most popular topic? Should I tell you?
The e-tolls.
E-tolls. You know it.
Yeah, you want me to say something?
I want you to say something.
Well, let me say this before Mmusi speaks.
I want to give you some notes. Scrap e-tolls, just to say that.
Let me say this.
Some of the things we say in the past come back to haunt us in the future.
I said earlier in my speech, just that I didn't finish that part, that in fact I'm aware that there's still discontent with the New Deal, if I may put it that way. But I just want to remind the audience that we are not where we were last year. We may not be in a situation where we are all satisfied, but where we started last year, we've made a bit of progress because you'll recall that Sandral wanted to implement the system the way it was. And we went and said, look, our people are saying it's expensive. They've now come back to say, look, we have discussed with you, national government, we are reducing to nobody will pay more than 225 a month. Even if you drive 1,000 times on those roads, you'll not pay more than that if you drive a small car. Okay, with the trucks, a bit different. But the point is that this issue is still going to go to Parliament. I'm sure Mmusi, you are aware. Because remember, the minister must now change the law. And I was saying to people, let's continue to engage, because other people, somebody was saying on radio this morning, okay, fine, I hear now 225, but they say I owe 10,000. Okay, if really you owe 10,000 and you were charged on the basis of the old system that had a double system of pricing and you have a grievance, I'm sure it can be attended to. Because where we stand as the ANC Gauteng is that we are worried about affordability. And we have not changed that stance, Comrade Vavi. We are worried about affordability. We want public transport that is affordable. That's really our starting point. And we're going to continue to say that on the issue of e-tolls.
Besides the issue of affordability, we still as South Africa, certainly from where I sit, am still concerned about the principle you apply. Yeah. The whole notion that economic infrastructure must be financed by the user, particularly using road infrastructure, I think to me is a misnomer. I think South Africans are already paying for the road infrastructure by using the fuel levy. Regardless of what the cost is, you can't add more. So you could make the cost any configuration you want, but we know for a fact that inflation will come on board. We have to increase these costs if we're going to meet our other objectives. The fact of the matter is that let us ring fence the fuel levy, finance road infrastructure in the way that we have, eliminate other wasteful expenditure. And I think Utatu Vavi was correct about the escalating levels of costs that we put forward. But there are many other projects that seem to be prioritized by this particular government, that seem to be fixed on serving their own particular interest without serving the people. Can you imagine if we redirected some of the financing that has been wasted by the state to being able to say, can we put it on road infrastructure? And I'll give you a very practical example. Why don't we have cabinet? Our cabinet is the largest. I'm not saying it will finance all road infrastructure, but I'm giving you practical examples of how fat our state is and how low its output is. And I'm suggesting that let us cut out wasteful expenditure. Let's stop. I know in Parliament, we have so many conferences in different venues. Why don't we use the same venue so that we cut out that expense and direct it to the people of South Africa? Okay. The issue here is about wrong focus.
Okay.
Should I say something on fuel levy before Vavi comes in?
That's
just one point there that, in fact, Mmusi will be surprised to know that one of the arguments we raised at the ANC conference was, in fact, the fuel levy. Now, you may ask, why did we back off? And the reason is because when we raised it with the panel, the argument was that it's not equitable because you are now making people who are living in Limpopo and Mpumalanga to pay for roads in Gauteng. That's the argument that was used. So we did advance it initially.
No, but let's not make this purely about e-tolls now. Let's move on.
Let's finish it. I just wanted to make that point that we did make that argument. So I'm saying let's continue to engage because at the end of the day, all of us would agree that we do want to finance infrastructure, user pay principle, but we want to make it affordable to everybody.
Okay, so Mr. Vavi, e-tolls was your issue as COSATU General Secretary. So you've moved on now. So COSATU says it's going to pursue the issue of e-tolls. It's going to pursue all the issues that you were deeply passionate about. I see you talking radical economic transformation. That's also the NC's, one of its central policies, one of the EFF central policies. What's your thing? What you going to be about now? I mean, you're not answering our questions directly about where you're going in terms of politics, in terms of a labor federation. What's your issue?
No, before I do that, I must say this. I'm sitting here quite embarrassed, Paul. I must say this, because there you have a DA on your right. Telling you about a principle that says in society, there are certain things that you cannot give it to the dictates of capital to hunt profits around, that they are so basic that they require a developmental state to provide. These include education, health, water, and our roads. You don't give them to the private entity to generate profit. The ANC in 2015 get to be told by the DA that.
But you were in the alliance, Mr. Vavi. Let's not get away from the fact that you were in the alliance. You could have made those arguments.
I did, by the way. That's why sometimes you explain.
So why are you laying it at Paul's door now? You did, it didn't work. So you know what the ANC is like, right?
I got kicked out.
You didn't get kicked out of the ANC, did you?
No. In fact, I think it's unfair to define Vavi outside of the ANC. I'm not sure why they're doing that. But of course, of course, if there are people who are critical within the ANC, you do need a critical voice.
And I
see Vavi being one of those. So when it's critical, I'm not saying, well, now, you are with these guys. So continue to be critical.
On your point, tomorrow, not me as an individual, the 9 unions in COSATU who are agitating for an independent, militant fighting organization are convening a civil society in Indaba. On our agenda, first is Nkandla.
Nkandla?
Yep.
Really?
Yes, that's what we're discussing. And all of the issues that relate to corruption. The second item is the e-tolls. The third issue is the crisis of unemployment, poverty, inequalities, dysfunctional education and healthcare system, and a range of other issues. We hope that we will come up out of tomorrow with a date to march to the union buildings, to say that somebody have to take responsibility at the fact that 246, and we are now being told more is going to be the case, is refusing. The cabinet should take responsibility over that issue. There can be no other way. The day South Africa just write tweets and Facebook and complain at the scale of that abuse of public purse, then we must know that we're signing our future off. We've got to stand up. We've got to go to the union buildings to say, we are not fools. We are ordinary people who pay taxes loyally every day. And don't just think that when we elect you, you have a right to willy-nilly decide that you can turn today a swimming pool and tell us that it is a fire pool tomorrow, and that we must agree to that.
Jump in there.
So you're asking me what I'm going to do. That's what I am doing every day. We're doing that tomorrow. We're out in the provinces, we're meeting people, and we will make a call on all political parties, including you, to join us. To join us, all of those who disagree as a matter of principle on the Nkandla scandal, irrespective of their political affiliation, their gender, their religion, or color, must join us.
Can I invite you to come and join our court action to make sure the president also adheres to the public protector's remedial action? Then
That's on our agenda accidentally tomorrow.
So we'll swap.
Look, some in the civil society are taking that matter up.
Here's the thing.
I just want to explain
be allowed.
Just give me 1 sec.
Okay.
I think we can all agree that the president's pimped up crib is a terrible thing. This ultimately, though, is a symbolic issue. And I would slightly disagree with the leader of the DA when he said that political parties need to sort of, I guess, coalesce around the amorphous term of values. I think there's too much agreement among South African political parties around substantive issues. When you talk about something like Nkandla, obviously there's all this, there's all this noise and this rage. Don't you think that what we have here is the beginning of almost a new political formation? The DA on the right, the ANC in the amorphous center, with perhaps a Labour Party developing on the left. Isn't this the beginning of real, substantive, political, ideological battles going forward?
I think...
Or are we going to lose this moment?
No, I think there's a great opportunity here. The true task, that's why I'm an advocate for change. Because ultimately the test of ideology is often expressed in how well you govern or not govern, or what your value or priority is, because actually our fiscal policy is the clearest indicator of our macroeconomic ideology. So where we put our money tells us a lot about what we think would address the state. And I think that's why I'm advocating that for South Africa, as we change even in metros and test out different governments, we can then be able to do that very exercise you're putting forward that says this government governs this way and the objectives are here, rather than this sort of, because unless it gets tested at the ballot box and in government, it becomes talk. And that's why one of the privileges I have coming into this position as leader of the opposition is that I don't just talk about saying, let's oppose this or let's do this. It's also a matter of what we test in government. Is we look in government and we say, this is what...
Yeah. I had some questions for these people.
Hey,
Chester, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Maimane.
Discipline, Chester.
I want to come out. Ranjit, can I ask these guys some questions?
Discipline,
Chester,
Chester.
this is not parliament.
Just a minute.
Wait,
I had some questions.
Chester,
Were these the only politicians you could get?
What?
he's asking if you're the only politicians we could get.
They were the only ones available.
Shall I say something on Kandla quickly?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please do.
Comrade-
Chester, shut up.
Comrade Vavi was saying that when the minister gave a report, he said something to the effect that more is going to be spent. Now, I just want to say that's not an ANC position.
Lies! Lies!
Come on.
No, it's true.
I want to
No,
talk.
it's true.
No.
It's true.
Be
It's
careful.
true. No, it's true. That report never came to the ANC because in our right minds, we can't say when the public is complaining and we say, no, we're going to spend more. So that issue is still going to be discussed by the NEC itself because it never came to us. So for now, I would like to say it's his view.
It's an ANC minister
Yeah, no, but
advancing an
it's his
ANC policy
No,
in government.
No,
but
no,
it's,
no.
Aye, bo.
No, it's not an ANC policy.
Okay, it
It's
does
not an
happen by
ANC
accident.
policy. It's not a policy. That's the point I'm
It's an
making.
ANC
So,
minister.
the ANC in Parliament in that ad hoc committee is going to say this is not our policy, Mr. Minister.
Certainly, because that's not an ANC position.
So when you vote in Parliament, you don't advance an ANC position or when you vote in support of the report.
We do. The point I'm making
You
is that-
voted in support of the report. You voted.
No. The report is still going to be
You
discussed.
supported it and you voted for
I
it.
supported that. It
Thank
must
you.
go and be discussed. But the point I was making, Comrade Vavi, was that issue have never come to us as the ANC. I heard it for the first time that the minister said this. I don't agree with it. So it's not an ANC position.
Okay.
Mr. Mashatile,
Yes.
let me ask you, because Mr. Maimane made a statement that got a very strong reaction in this room
Yeah.
and on social media. He said that South Africans deserve to live in a country where politicians fear the voters and not the other way around. What is the view of the ANC in terms of what regard they hold the voters of this country? Because ever so often, you very confidently remind us that you will be in power forever.
I certainly have never done that.
Well, the ANC then reminds
I really
us.
fear the voters. I fear the voters.
You fear,
We as politicians are servants. We hear from the voters. If the voters said, we are not happy with this, we will listen.
Well, let's do a simple exercise.
No, just wait. Just
Seriously,
wait.
who invited this happen?
No.
Chester,
I'm
do you
sorry.
think this is Parliament?
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
who
I'm
invited-
sorry. Hello. Oh my
Discipline,
God. How did you...
Chester.
Discipline from
Can
you. No, I want to understand in Canada because basically Jacob Zuma said the Minister of Police is telling whether to take back the money, and then the Minister of Police is waiting for Jacob Zuma to tell him whether to tell him. It's like the CEO of Edgar's forgot today his Edgar's account and then was dodging calls from himself. But just this way, sorry, Mr. Mashatile.
Yeah.
And at titleist schools, they had those in the total for years. There's a lot of things that I didn't understand, you guys. A lot of things I didn't. 75% of senior management are still white, or as Mmusi calls them, his support base. I don't understand. How did you choose these guys, Ranjan? You got two politicians and Ivan Jim's wingman.
No, Chester, do you know us? We're mavericks. Nobody wants to hang with us.
No, dude, you're Stan. You arrive in the mornings.
Okay, and the other thing is that you barge into these things. I mean, who come here if they know you're going to be here?
I know, that's true. That's true.
You just
But
ruin
you
every
knew-
neighborhood because you come here, you behave like you're in parliament. We don't have white shirts. It's
I behave
security
like
guards.
these people.
Okay, we're getting close to having to wrap up.
Let me just say that I do salute Paul and his guts in relation to this matter of the 246 million.
Great job.
It's going to get
And
recalled.
let me say, had we had a lot of Paul Mashatiles in the National Executive Committee, way back in 2009 when it was first reported that the Nkandla spending have escalated to 79 million and then 200 and something million, we would not be sitting with 246 million rands now that we're speaking about. So whilst I salute him, I think that lot of cabinet ministers, and he was in cabinet when that happened, and lot of National Executive Committees should hang their heads in shame that they did not stand up and be counted.
But hold on,
this
you were in the
particular
ANC
matter.
National Executive. I mean, you were in the ANC Alliance. You have Jacob Zuma's cell number. Do you still have
The
it?
last time I had a one-on-one meeting with him was in June 2010, and on my agenda was on these issues.
Okay, so
There's
what was his
Facebook
response?
threads, I know it. Okay. Hello, uncle. Shame, man, you wanted to keep on talking there for a long time. Eh? For a unionist wanting to work overtime is not a good sign.
I mean, I think, Ranjani, one of the things that we've got to do, it's one thing to lament, and we are right as South Africans to be outraged by this Nkandla issue. The second critical decision that we've got to make is how do we manage security upgrades in future for any president?
Yeah.
Because here's the difficulty here. If someone knew they'd become president of the republic, what's to stop them from purchasing a plot of land somewhere else, putting up a tent, and then saying, come secure me?
Yeah.
You see, so we've got to decide what policy mechanism we apply to say, when we do security upgrades, here's the total cost and it cannot exceed that. When we say, who do we deploy, how does Parliament, in fact, ensure that it has oversight on the initial agreement to say, this is what needs to be secured? Because let's not forget here, this had we've already got 5 presidential residences. This shifted from being a security upgrade to being a presidential upgrade without all the memos being accountable to Parliament. That's why this ad hoc committee becomes a difficult one, because when you arrive, then you say, let the president come and account. They say, no, he can't. Let's ask for the cabinet memo. This becomes delayed. All of those issues. If South Africans, that's why I talk about this fair relationship. The executive must always be accountable to Parliament. The day the executive dictates what Parliament must and must not do, we end up with remorse.
And so far, Mmusi, so far, there is not a single example I know on any matter that became controversial where our MPs put their foot down and say no.
You can see why
Not
if you
on
glued
it all.
Vavi and Mmusi together, you'd get Helen Zille's favorite black guy.
Ranjan, no, but let me just highlight that, in fact, there is a policy that was adopted in 2004 under President Mbeki. And perhaps what we should do is to bring it to
I've
Parliament.
requested for it.
It's there.
To this day, nobody can give me the handbook that
there is a
determines.
policy.
Okay.
Can you bring it, please?
Okay, we need to wrap up now,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So let me just ask you in closing, is there any possibility that candidate Maimane, candidate Mashatile, candidate Vavi will be on a future election ballot?
Sorry,
one
Rajeni,
after
please
that?
call it, sorry, Rajeni, it's not Lana, it's Darak Naimani.
Chester, you are
Point of
ungovernable.
order.
Chester, you are
He's
disturbing.
completely out of order.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
like your
so
sex slides, okay.
Like your sex life.
So one at a time, do you think that we can have,
That's an underbelt. Chester.
I love you, uncle. I hope you get a job. Cleaning the fire pool. Okay.
Okay, we need to wrap up. Chester, I am going to get you forcibly removed
Yeah.
if you do not behave. Just be nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Maimane, do you see a situation where candidate Maimane, candidate Mashatile, candidate Vavi would be on an election ballot? Do you think that that's what South Africa needs? This kind of competition, young guys who have new ideas, who don't want to stay at Nkandla, who are willing to, come and talk to the Mavericks.
Absolutely. I think the generational shift in South African politics is something that we believe we're championing the way forward for, a mixture of ideas. I certainly would hope that even at next year's ballots we'll be there, and in 2019 we'll certainly be there, because we believe South Africans must have a choice about their future, rather than just only really having a debate about a better yesterday. We must have an encounter about what we can make a better tomorrow.
Okay, Mr. Mashatile, there is talk somewhere that you could possibly be leaving Parliament, that you could possibly be contesting for a senior position in the ANC in 2017. Is that a wild rumor? Is it a vague possibility?
Well, it's a rumor for now. But let me say that, for a future of this country, I think it will be good to compete with a lot of young people. I'm certainly ready for Maimanes of this world. But I'm older than him, by the way. But I think it's good for democracy to see more young, vibrant youngsters determined to ensure that we transform this country for the better.
Mr. Vavi, do you think your name is going to be on a ballot paper anytime soon?
No. I'm an activist. I'm not necessarily somebody hunting for a
But some of your
positions.
supporters here want you to
No, you have not spoken to
Which
anyone.
one of you?
No, but the point is, I like what Nelson Mandela have always inspired me. When he said that in South Africa, like anywhere else in the world, there will always be good men and women in any political organization. What South Africa have not recognized enough is that there is definitely an overlap in all political parties. It doesn't matter whether you regard it as a moderate, right-wing, left-wing, but there's something in common. For example, there's
Mantele Rantele, that's the other Latin.
There is a commonality that we both are disgusted by the 246 million rand spent. And I'm not ashamed to agree with you from the DA or to agree with the ANC in Gauteng that that's shameful, full stop. But there are disagreements too. We must not underestimate that. I'm a socialist to the core. Every day I sleep and wake up, my first thought is what's happening to the plight of the working people and the poor. And what the speech that Maimane was making here makes me to cringe where I was sitting to say, oh my word, these policies will drive the situation of the workers and the poor even.
No, tell us about the tour, tell us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap it up.
This man is a complete disruption.
Who's your daddy?
We now hand you back to our hosts, Tumi Marake and John Flismus.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to our panel. I have to be honest. I think Mr. Maimane has quite a tight rebuttal on him. It's quite impressive. Whew. And a fun fact is that 2 out of the 3 men who are on this stage have been involved in sex scandals. But I'm saying 2 because no one knows about me and Paul. Paulos. Now, Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please go to sli.do, sli.do, post your questions there. Now, we have a musical Jew, who is going to give us politics in A minor. Please welcome Mr. Deep Fried Man.
Wow. It is such an honor for me to be here on this lineup of some of South Africa's best and brightest, and also Gareth Cliff. I'm going to be doing something that I invented. It's when you take a popular song and you change the lyrics. I think it's going to be huge. And I'm going to be applying it to some items in recent news. So it goes like this. It goes, R.I.P. to Amy Winehouse. Are you guys ready? I'm going to do it anyway. They try to make me buy an E-tag, but I said no, no, no. Cyril Ramaphosa said he would call the po. But they ain't got the time. They're too busy with the crime. And no one bought a single E-tag, in Joburg. That one used to be a lot longer, sorry, but the reason is the people have been heard. And so I decided to cut it by 60%. Now, a lot of comedians are scared to make fun of big brands because they think it will affect their career. But I just think you have to be careful about which brands you make fun of at which events. So this event is sponsored by Nando's, and I'm going to be discussing KFC. Because there was that KFC incident, it was very recent, and it made me think about the Parlotones. Because the Parlotones were sponsored by KFC. They had their own KFC meal, which is perfect because they have a song which goes, push me to the floor, don't give up until I'm begging you for more. I'll be thinking about the time I felt inspired. Which is perfect, because all they have to do is change the lyrics of their existing song, and what they'll have is a handy instructional video for the staff at KFC, which will go, wash meat on the floor, don't forget to hose those chickens that are raw, don't get caught though or you likely will get fired. I watch a lot of daytime television. Does anyone watch a lot of daytime television? You guys are probably employed, right? Well, I'm not. And you know, when you watch a lot of daytime television, you get used to certain things. And then when those things get disrupted, it throws your world into a frenzy, which is why I wrote this song. No lean, no lean, no lean, no lean. I'm begging you to come back to TV. No lean, no lean, no lean, no lean. How could you leave us here with Jeannie D? So the whole FIFA thing happened. I don't know if you guys are aware of a song. It's by Kanye West, Rihanna, and Paul McCartney. You guys know that song? So it made me think of Mr. Sepp Blatter. And it goes like this. It goes, if you go to jail tonight, promise you won't rat on me. See, they want me locked inside, but I have immunity because of my lawyers. I come out the cleanest, and they were 5 seconds from bribing, and I had 5 more years till retiring. I was trying to make more cash, but now I'm resigning. Homie, I swear to buy the world's biggest diamond. That's all I want. That's actually really hilarious if you know the original song. So there's a statue, the statue issue, and white people I know it's a sensitive issue for us, so it's just a suggestion, black people. You don't have to take it seriously, but it's just a suggestion. Why don't you try and relate your feelings regarding the statue in a way that's a little bit less intimidating to white people using song? Because I think even the most racist white South Africans can get down to some Boys to Men. It goes like this, it goes. I know you love Cecil. You just don't have a clue. That statue's the same as a statue of Hitler for a Jew. Madiba said, forgive you. Believe me, we try, hey. But you hate when we rename the roads